James handed me a vial of potion, his face clouded with displeasure.
Drink it, just do me this favor.
His eyes fixed intently on me. I tried to keep my body from trembling too noticeably.
This won't be fatal. I just need your blood.
I knew he wasn't concerned about my life. It was simply that my life held significant value for him. His beloved Emily, the second daughter of the Lin family, had inexplicably fallen ill with a severe condition. Only the blood of a noble woman with the same character in her name could save her.
Is his CPU fried? He actually believes this?
I've loved him for 5 years, and he's nothing but an ungrateful wretch.
He knew that I would agree to any request he made.
I love you so much, yet now you want my blood. I can't love you anymore.
Grace! You!
I glanced at him, filled with indescribable emotions.
Full marks for acting this time.
I said I loved him, but from the beginning, it was a lie to gain his pity points to help me return to the real world. With that, I swallowed the potion in one gulp. The potion was extremely potent and acted quickly. Almost instantly, intense pain spread throughout my body, and it felt like my stomach was churning.
Ugh!
A mouthful of blood spurted out, staining my white clothes, with a few drops splattering onto James's face. He casually wiped his face and collected a vial of my blood before leaving.
This hurts like hell. When can I leave?
Soon, his pity points have reached 20%.
5 years with him for just 20%. Looks like I need to step up my game.
Before leaving, he turned to look at me.
Eat well and take care of yourself.
Was he showing concern for me? Before I could smile, James added.
Otherwise, we won't be able to collect any more blood.
You're impossible.
5 years ago, I was transported into this system space. The original character was a noblewoman, but due to the Emperor's wrath, the Bai family fell from grace overnight. Her parents were exiled to the frontier, and only because she was a daughter did she survive. The Su family took her in, and James, the eldest son of the Su family, was skilled in both literature and martial arts, highly favored and trusted by the Emperor. The original character grew up with James, her love for him deepening over time. A few years ago, the Emperor discovered that the Bai family had been wronged, so he decreed that the original character should marry James. That's when I was transported here. That day, I knelt in white robes to receive the decree, but James refused the marriage in front of me.
I have someone I love and wish to marry only her.
He didn't notice the murderous intent in my eyes. How could he not love someone as beautiful as me? No one could defy the Emperor's decree. I still became his nominal wife, but I knew James's heart was always with Emily.
Sister, thank you for your blood to save me.
Emily coughed, looking frail and leaning heavily on James. In James's eyes, I saw a care and tenderness I had never seen before.
Emily, if you're tired, go back and rest. I'll handle things here.
Emily. He used to call me that when we were children. The system detected a wave of sadness in my mind and started playing melancholic music.
Enough already.
A sharp pain twisted in my stomach, and I could barely stand. I found an excuse to return to the manor to rest, but James wouldn't let me.
The guests haven't left, and you're the host. How can you leave?
Sweat was pouring down my forehead, and I must have looked deathly pale. If this body weren't so weak, I would have punched him.
What's wrong?
As I was about to collapse, James caught me, holding me tightly in his arms.
You're burning up. Do you have a fever?
My robe was soaked with sweat, and I trembled as I whispered.
Thank you.
This seemed to hit a nerve, and he abruptly pulled away from me. My vision blurred. Serious when I woke up again. The first person I saw was him.
Get up and take your medicine.
James brought the medicine to my lips personally. The bitterness of the medicine made my tongue go numb.
Fine, for James's sake and to return to the real world, I endured it. Do you remember when we were kids?
I asked James, trying to make conversation while sipping the medicine. He seemed to be pulled back to his childhood by my words. Thoughtful, I remember once when I was unwell, you sat by my bed, feeding me medicine spoon by spoon. The original owner's memory surfaced in my mind. But when did our relationship become so strained? James's hand paused, and he stared at me blankly. He suddenly noticed how frail I had become. My face almost skeletal, my skin an unhealthy pale color. Concerned you'd drink it yourself. The medicine in his hand nearly spilled, and he quickly handed it to me. I was used to his unpredictable moods, but I was so weak that I couldn't even hold the bowl. James furrowed his brows, his eyes filled with guilt and some unidentifiable emotions. Serious, I'll inform the Lin family that we won't need your blood anymore. Sad, my body froze. Then I smiled brightly, tears unknowingly falling onto the blanket.
Why are you crying?
I don't know, maybe I feel it's not worth it for the original owner.
After drinking the medicine, drowsiness overcame me. James lifted his hand to tuck me in, suddenly pulling out my arm to inspect it. Shocked, how did this happen?
Do you need blood?
Then I pulled out a small knife from under the pillow, ready to cut my arm. The once pristine, fair arm was now covered in unsightly dense scars, some still fresh and unhealed. James gently touched the scars and took the knife from my hand. Too weak, I fell asleep the next second. What I didn't know was that James sat by my bed for a long time, repeatedly caressing those ugly scars, and instructed the servants to buy the best ointments for me.
Grace. I'm sorry. What should I do with you?
The system announced, heartache level has reached 40%.
Smiling without saying a word.
The pain she endured to make those cuts was worth it after all. In the original owner's memory, James treated her so well. Why is it that as soon as she arrived, it was all about bloodletting and taking medicine?
But ever since James met Emily, he devoted himself entirely to her. James, you and I are the ones who are married.
James glanced at her indifferently, with a hint of reluctance in his eyes.
I know.
Yes, he knows everything. He just doesn't love her and chose someone else.
My sentimental nature grew worse, even earning a warning from the system.
Do not invest personal emotions in the protagonist.
I understand.
So from then on, she began her desensitization process.
Grace, why didn't you wait for me to dine together today?
No matter how late it was, she would wait for him to return home for dinner. But today, facing an empty dining table, her heart didn't feel as desolate as before, because the system told her.
He just had dinner with Emily.
Haven't you already eaten? Can you still eat more?
You?
He might have noticed that she was a bit different from before. After all, the original owner rarely contradicted him.
The Emperor has summoned us to the palace tomorrow.
She nodded, called for the servants to clear the table, and looked out the window. In the second year of the Zhangguan era, it snowed heavily today. She couldn't help but sit on the swing in the courtyard for a while.
This was something I had insisted James install for me after I arrived. Back then, James hadn't met Emily yet, and I lived a carefree life in the James residence. I said I liked swings, and he immediately ordered one to be installed for me.
She remembered asking him naively.
What if I want the stars in the sky?
Sweetheart, I'll get them for you.
But Emily might be my destined calamity. Ever since meeting her, my life has been going downhill.
In a daze, a cloak was draped over her shoulders.
It's cold outside, let's go back.
He placed his hand on her shoulder, feeling how frail she had become.
Heartache level has reached 45%.
The melancholy in her deepened as she looked at James's calm profile, feeling more and more at peace. His future path would ultimately have nothing to do with her. On the day they entered the palace, there was music and dancing. The emperor treated James very well and extended that kindness to her as well.
Is Sir James interested in the young lady from the Lin family? How about I grant her to you as a concubine?
For the sake of appearances, the emperor even asked for her opinion. For some reason, James seemed very eager to hear her response.
Of course, that's fine.
As soon as she finished speaking, the smile on James's face froze, and he looked at her with disbelief.
Are you serious?
Could it be fake? I'm leaving soon anyway.
Just as the emperor was about to give the order, James stood up.
Your Majesty, I already have Grace as my wife and do not wish to delay another woman.
Weren't you reluctant when the marriage was arranged? Men, they only realize what they have when they're about to lose it.
On the way back to the palace, it snowed again. The sound of crunching snow underfoot was clear.
Were you serious just now?
Of course, I was serious. Don't you understand, James? I'm giving up on you.
The person beside her took a sharp breath and turned to press her against the palace wall. James's face was dark as he whispered,
Do you really want to separate from me that much?
You were the one who left me first.
As soon as she said that, the grip on her shoulders loosened. He looked at her for a long time without speaking.
The weather is cold, and you're weak. Let me carry you back to the residence.
Before she could agree, he bent down, waiting. She couldn't refuse and reluctantly climbed onto his back. His body radiated warmth, making her feel safe and steady. She wrapped her arms around his neck, not feeling lonely even in the cold winter.
Why? Why did he only look back at me when I wanted to leave?
After that day, her relationship with James improved significantly, and they could laugh and talk together. The wounds on her arms seemed to fade with time, but the good times didn't last long. He came to ask for her blood again.
Weren't you looking for a new method? Why do you still need it?
Grace, just this once, the last time.
James. What am I to you?
Detected increase in affection level. Do not invest too much emotion in the NPC.
The beeping in her head grew louder, and there stood James, looking guilty. Her frustration deepened.
James, is my life not worth anything? Between her and me, who do you choose?
James's hesitant expression made her heart sink, as if there was some unspeakable pain. She still held on to a glimmer of hope.
Tell me, please? Don't ask for my blood anymore.
James just shook his head.
Detected increase in affection level. Punishment will commence in 10 seconds.
She looked at the familiar medicine bottle in his hand and quickly asked the system how much the heartache level was.
48%.
It was too painful. She couldn't hold on any longer. She grabbed the bottle and drank it all. The system's punishment followed. Pain. Such intense pain.
The agony was unbearable. What did I do wrong? Why do I have to endure this suffering? James. I really don't want you anymore.
Sad, a mouthful of blood spurted out, and James hurriedly collected it before leaving, no longer paying attention to me. This time, the pain spread to every corner of my body. It wasn't until late at night that James finally returned to the mansion, only to find me curled up in a corner, trembling, cold sweat soaking my entire body. Terrified Grace. Sad, you guys are really ruthless. Serious, I told you not to fall in love with him. I could feel him rushing to my side, but every place his hand touched felt excruciatingly painful. Sad James, it hurts so much. As soon as I finished speaking, I couldn't bear it any longer and fainted. I didn't know if I was awake or not. Everything before my eyes was dark and blurry, making it hard to see clearly. I only heard an unfamiliar voice by my bedside saying, "Serious, young master, Miss Grace has lost her sight, likely due to repeated poisoning." Shouting, "What did you say? She's only 25. Serious, the poisoning wasn't his doing. Why are you yelling at him?" Silence fell. I felt hot droplets fall onto my hand, probably James's tears. What's the use of crying? Will crying cure my eyes? I also wanted to cry my heart out, but the dryness and pain in my eyes wouldn't allow it. In my vision, I could only make out James's silhouette, but I couldn't see his face. I saw him seemingly move closer, but I just stared blankly, without any focus. I silently withdrew my hand and waved him away. Unfriendly James. What more do you want from me? Serious. Heartache level has reached 65%. Sad, I wished it would quickly reach 100%. How could I have been so blind to love him back then? Oh, I wasn't blind back then, but now I'm close to it. I let out a bitter laugh and sat dazed on the bed. James often came to see me, mostly receiving a cold shoulder. I refused to cooperate with drinking those herbal medicines meant to nourish my body. Unfriendly, this broken body. Drinking these precious herbs is such a waste. Due to my blindness, I couldn't see James's expression at that moment. As days passed, my vision deteriorated to almost complete blindness. Serious, oh my. He has white hair now. Surprised, James was only 27, yet he had white hair. But I didn't know for whom this white hair had grown. Was it for the delicate yet radiant Emily? Or for me, the scarred, blind, and cold-faced Grace? Anyone would know whom to choose. Due to my blindness, I became even less inclined to move. As the weather warmed, the scars on my body started to itch, and I couldn't help but scratch until they bled. Seeing this, James insisted on taking me out for a walk. Angry walk for what? What can I see? This seemed to pierce his heart again. Hopeful Grace, let me be your eyes, okay? My heart softened, and I let him lead me out. He took me to the palace, where many maids and eunuchs greeted me, and some concubines asked if I needed a sedan chair. Their kindness moved me, and I couldn't help but joke with James. Cheerful, do you think I could marry the emperor? The person beside me paused, then replied coldly. Serious, no. You are already married to me. After a few words, we bumped into a girl who seemed to have fallen to the ground. Shy, ouch. My heart tightened. James stepped forward to help her up and then returned to my side, saying, Serious, it's Emily. Friendly sister, what happened to you? Unfriendly, thanks to you, what else? Her voice sounded much stronger. Perhaps my blood really was a miracle cure. Cheerful, no worries, I just can't see. She coquettishly spoke to James. Cheerful, brother James, since sister can't see, she might not be able to do things properly. Why not take me as a concubine, so I can serve you? James gripped my arm tightly, as if afraid the emperor's marriage decree would happen again, fearing I would nod and say, Serious, of course. He quickly refused. Angry, Miss Emily, please have some self-respect. My wife lost her sight saving you. How dare you say such disrespectful things? Moreover, Miss Emily, isn't there something you forgot to give me? I didn't know what it was, but from James's tone, it seemed quite important. James supported me as we walked forward, and I heard Emily shouting from behind. Shouting, "She's blind, and you think you're not at fault." His body trembled, and his hand on my arm started shaking as well. He whispered, "Sad, yes. It's my fault." Angry, "Where is she? Take me to her." After reaching her, I raised my hand and slapped her. The sound echoed down the street. Already weak, she struggled to get up from the ground. "Serious, don't think that just because the White family has fallen, I can be easily bullied. This slap is just a warning. Also, hand over the item to James. Otherwise, this slap won't be the last." She was so frightened that she sobbed, saying, "Terrified, I understand. I'll give it to him soon." The days of heavy snowfall have passed, and spring has arrived. The ailment seems to be spreading more rapidly within me, causing me to spend my days in a haze of fatigue and drowsiness.
Heartache level has reached 80%. You are about to be freed.
I asked my maid to take me outside for a walk. The spring breeze on my face was somewhat piercing.
Lily, have you ever loved anyone?
Lily is my personal maid. She naturally understood what I was asking, but she remained silent for a long time.
Don't fall in love with anyone, especially someone who doesn't love you. Lily, I think my time is near. If possible, could you tell James something for me? When I am laid to rest, please dress me in red. I often wore plain colors, but in death, I should wear something different.
After a moment of contemplation, I chuckled softly.
Never mind, I'll wear it for him to see.
I felt someone kneeling at my knees, crying like a newborn child. I knew it wasn't Lily, it was James.
Heartache level has reached 95%.
This was the most harmonious night we had ever spent together. James and I reminisced about the happy days at the manor. I lay quietly in his arms, listening to his magnetic and gentle voice.
I never liked Emily, you know? She holds secrets of the James family. As a temporary measure, I had to befriend her to gain her trust before I could leave. Between the James family and you, I had to prioritize the family's honor. I've always loved you, but I couldn't protect you, and you got hurt time and again.
My breathing grew weaker, almost to the point of suffocation. I smiled faintly, my eyes hollow, yet I seemed to see his face clearly. The ailment had long corroded my body, and I knew my life was waning.
James, let's do it.
I felt his tears rolling down his face.
It hurts.
Detected increase in affection level, punishment will commence in 10 seconds.
Tears welled up in my eyes as I awaited the intense pain, but the pleasure in my body made me sink deeper. It hurt, but it was blissful. My hands roamed over his body, seemingly leaving red marks on his back. James kissed my neck and collarbone meticulously, returning to my lips repeatedly. Sweat drenched us, yet we savored every moment.
I really can't take it anymore.
Unexpectedly, he became more fervent, murmuring,
Grace, my dear Grace.
I don't know when it stopped, but James held me in his arms, and we had a night of sweet dreams. Heartache level has reached 98%, 99, 100. As soon as the system's voice faded, my breathing ceased. Then my soul ascended into the air, and the system gave me 10 minutes to wait. I finally saw the light again.
If you hadn't fallen in love with him, you wouldn't have left so soon. He wanted your blood for someone else. How could you still love him?
Machines don't understand human love.
He chose his family, and I couldn't be that selfish. James had just woken up and pulled me into his arms, suddenly realizing something was wrong.
I'm sorry, Grace. I'm so sorry.
James pressed his forehead against mine, planting kiss after kiss on my cold lips, as if afraid of breaking me.
Does it hurt? Let me blow on it for you, okay? Why? Weren't we always in love?
A wave of sorrow washed over me, and the memories of our passionate times turned into mere illusions. Finally, I had escaped. That day was the third year of the Tang Dynasty, the beginning of spring. Back in the real world, the system in my mind hadn't disappeared.
Why are you still here?
Yeah, why am I still here?
Having it around wasn't so bad. It was nice to have someone to talk to. A heavy rain broke the usual calm, and I hid under the eaves of a bookstore, muttering about the lousy weather.
Detected NPC appearance.
What are you talking about? Are you losing it?
This number looks familiar. It seems to be James.
I hadn't heard that name in 6 months, and I froze. Then a young man ran over from a distance, his shirt soaked by the rain, and he joined me under the eaves.
Are you hiding from the rain too? My name is James.
I didn't dare to talk to him. The days of torment were still vivid in my mind, and I didn't want to go through that again. I just wanted to quietly leave his side. But he was persistent, seemingly very interested in me.
Hello?
Grace.
Really? But for some reason, I feel like that's not your real name.
I looked up sharply. Tears were already welling up in his eyes.
Grace, do you really hate me?
It seems James's obsession is deep enough to take human form and come to the real world to find you.
I turned back with a cold face, hoping to scare him away. But seeing him in front of me, I found I couldn't do it. In the real world, he was so youthful and sunny, except for the redness in his eyes. I was suddenly lost in memories. I knew he had to consider his family, and for the safety of the James family, he had to let me go. But seeing him holding another woman, I almost went mad. Seeing him take my blood day after day for another woman's safety. What did I love about him? Did I love him for carefully cooking dishes to make me happy on my birthday? Or did I love him for holding me from behind and taking all the punishment when my foster father whipped me? He taught me to write, taught me to read, and would stand in front of me and say,
Grace, don't be afraid.
These were all things we experienced together. I couldn't forget the pain, nor. The young man didn't follow me. I ran home as if fleeing, gulping down a large glass of cold water to calm myself.
Just a reminder. You can have feelings for NPCs in the real world.
Get lost.
Somehow, James managed to pinpoint my address and quickly moved into the apartment next door, becoming my neighbor. Whether by coincidence or design, every time I stepped out, I would see James with a hesitant look on his face.
What are you doing out here?
I thought he was an NPC who had escaped from the virtual world, but to my surprise, his eyes reddened, and he said in a trembling voice,
I miss you.
With just those words, the fortress I had painstakingly built crumbled.
James, let's just end this. You'll never understand my pain.
He silently retreated into his apartment. Despite the soundproofing, I could still hear his muffled sobs. For a while, things were peaceful. Then, as misfortunes often come in pairs, our building suddenly caught fire. I was blissfully asleep in bed at the time. A pungent smell jolted me awake, and I saw someone frantically pounding on my window. It was James, but this was the 16th floor. He had climbed up the pipes, step by step, to reach my window. The fire downstairs had already spread upwards. My consciousness was fading, but I used my last bit of strength to open the window for him.
Emily! Emily!
When I woke up, everything was white.
How are you feeling?
I sat up abruptly, pain shooting through my body, but my mind was unusually clear.
Where's James? Where's James?
Calm down. He's still being treated.
I had no idea how James managed to get me out, but after several inquiries, I finally found out. Ames had soaked a blanket in water, carried me on his back, and wrapped me securely in the blanket. It wasn't until halfway that firefighters rescued us. I was almost unscathed, but he had suffered extensive burns in over a dozen places. He didn't care about his own safety at all. He was only relieved when he saw that I was safe. 2 days later, James was transferred from the intensive care unit to a regular ward. I saw that his once clean forearm was now covered with scars of varying sizes, and there were a few unsightly stitches on his face.
Emily, are you okay?
When he woke up, the first thing he did was ask if I was okay. Then he hid his arm, leaving only his big eyes visible as he looked at me.
What's wrong?
James looked a bit sorrowful, tears wetting his eyelashes.
Too ugly.
I hugged him tightly and cried.
Not ugly at all.
What kind of pain was that, comparable to what I had experienced years ago? Back in the real world, my scars had long disappeared, but his scars would accompany him for life. Perhaps he had also atoned for his sins. I couldn't help but kiss his lips, the salty taste of tears quickly spreading, yet I found it incredibly sweet.
Emily, I'm sorry. Can I spend the rest of my life making it up to you?
I nodded solemnly.